Hello and welcome to this example here where I'm going to be taking a look at finding mean and standard deviation of a data set and then using that to create a frequency table and answer some questions based on that. So the question states, Olivia is organizing her movie collection and she decides that to record the length of each movie in minutes. Now I've put together the movie lengths. I've done them from least to greatest, which is going to probably help us out a little bit. If they're more scattered, it's a little bit harder to figure out what they are, but that's okay. We can still very easily do that if we need. So the first thing we're going to do is determine the mean and standard deviation for the data set. Now you can you can do that by hand or calculating by hand, or I'm going to use a program called Desmos to do that. I find it a little bit easier to do as long as I can type everything out. Um, and it comes up with the answers somewhat accurately as long as I've put in the questions correctly, or it does accurately if I've done the data points correctly. So when I plug those all in, I found that it had a mean of 102.46 minutes with a standard deviation of 22.37. So that's going to be step one that we're going to do when we're trying to make a frequency table. Because step B is create a frequency table using standard deviation as the interval width, and we're going to use the mean as our kind of our base mark that we're going to use. So this is the frequency table that I make. I'm going to start with my mean in one of the boxes, and then I'm going to subtract the standard deviation until I get somewhere below the lowest number, and I'm going to add the standard deviation until I get above the biggest number in my data set, because I want to make sure that all of the data points are going to fit within that data set. Now, I got to fill a data set. So that first grouping there, something between about 58 and 80 minutes, there's only two that fit there. Those first two really helps that I have things organized from least to greatest here. That next data set has a lot. It happens to have about 33 of the 50 movies in there. And then we can keep kind of looking at which groupings have each of those, how many numbers, and fill them in. We have 6 in the next one, 5, then 3, and then 1 in the very final one. We have one really long movie, apparently, about 3 hours long. Ooh, yeah, it's a bit of a long movie. Don't worry, this one won't be as long. All right, so this is our frequency table, okay, and we're gonna come up with that. Now, here's a couple questions there. It asks, are the lengths of Olivia's movies normally distributed? And we're going to use the two conditions that I have taught in class. If you're unsure what those conditions are, we're going to go through those right now. Condition number 1 is, are 50% of the data points below the mean? Okay, the mean is 102.46, and that means that all of these are below the mean. Well, is that about half? Well, we can also look at the frequency table. It's right there. Okay, 35 of them. Okay, if we count up the ones below the mean. And so that is about 70% of the data. That is way above the 50%. So according to this one test, this is not normally distributed. If you put this frequency table into a histogram, it would not be a nice curve. Okay, it would be really skewed off to one side. Okay, and that'll probably be the lower side there. So we already know that it's not, but that's okay. I want to show you the second test that we can do as well. And that is our 68% of the data points between one standard deviation above the mean, okay, which is, below the mean, which is right there, and one above the mean, which is right there. Okay, so what I did is I took the mean, I subtracted a standard deviation, and found one kind of limit, which is also in the frequency table, and I'll show that in a minute. And I added a standard deviation as well, and I want to figure out how many data points are between those two pieces. Well, if I look at the data table there, all of these are between. If that's too many to count, we can look at the lower number and upper number and realize that there is the grouping, okay, 33 and 6, that is going to be between those two standard deviation marks. Okay, that's about 39. There we go. So 39 out of the 70, which is 78%. We would expect that number to be closer to 68% if this was normal. And so this is a little bit above that piece. So on that note, are the lengths normally distributed? No, they are not. There's way too many below the mean, and there's too many that are actually in the middle sections. We would need to have a few more on the outsides in order to solve that. I hope this has helped you with this question here. I hope it's helped you to kind of go through and understand each of these pieces. And I hope that you're able to solve this a little bit easier and these types of questions a bit easier. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day.